Welcome to day two. So, today is kind of like a make or break situation for a lot of you guys. So, depending on whether you have been in business for quite some time, if you've been doing a lot of these things, no matter what, today is going to be the day you will understand your buyers, you will understand what they do, you will understand your buyer psychology, you will understand the different types of buyers that you're going to talk to. And if you have been wondering why you have great offers but your offers are not converting, if you're not sure about what tweaks to do in your business, what things to do, and if you're just thinking about what is going wrong with my business, then this day is going to be the one that's going to help you with a lot of different things. So feel free to ask your questions in the chat. There's always the chat section that you could use to just say hey. So yeah. All right, so that's that. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen. So, like I mentioned, okay, so your buyer journey and your buyer types, if you've never heard of a buyer type, if you're like, what is even a buyer type? Are there buyers, different types of buyers? I never knew this. Then this was something that I figured probably like after I became a funnel designer when I began. And then I was trying to actually produce results for a client, and then they were too early in the process. No matter what amount of things we did, the problem was that they were not really able to get results. They were not really able to see what was going on because they had already tested this offer multiple times. They weren't sure what's going on. So that's when I did some research, and the person that I was trying to talk to, my coach, was then telling me, because I do invest in a lot of programs, right? So the first thing that they told me was, are you even aware that there is something called a buyer journey? And I was vaguely interested in, knew what a buyer journey was. I knew that there were different buyer personas, but I actually didn't know that there were four different personas. And the type of copy that my client's copywriter used to put together was for the exact single type of audience. So, which means she did not put together a copy for four different types of audiences, because every business, even my business, where I'm a funnels and automation consultant, even I have four different types of buyers. And I'm going to get to all of this. But the interesting part was that they asked me, did you even know this? And I was just telling them to write the copy, and they were writing the copy for just one persona type. And then that became very evident in like 3 months down the line as to why things never converted for the client. The funnels that I built were great, the automations were solid, but they did not even know that there was the fundamental problem was the fact that they did not write or address the problems for all of these different audiences. And then the minute I learned this from my coach, I think this was like 3 years before, and the minute we learned all of this, and then the minute we tweaked the copy to address four different types of buyers in the landing page and also inside the email sequences that we wrote for them, that's when things shifted. And that's when we all started seeing a lot of different improvements. We started seeing purchases come in, we started seeing leads come in. And so if you watched yesterday's video where we spoke about your offer and how to solidify your offer and how to ask the right questions for your offer, then this is something that you definitely need to have in place before you even create that offer. Or create your offer and make sure it works for all the four different audience personas, and you have a buyer journey in place. Make sense? Let me first begin by saying, okay, in a nutshell, a buyer journey. Because when I speak to a lot of people, the first thing that they think is the design of the funnel, or they think it is a series of pages, or they think it's a content plan. Yeah, I have a content plan for my buyers and they know exactly what I'm doing about. That's not that. It's not the list of links that you send to your people. You're like, so if my website is like funnelgrowth.design, and if I sent funnelgrowth.design to one person and then funnelgrowth.design /portfolio to another person, and then I call it as a buyer journey, that's not the right thing, right? It's not the list of links. It's not your email sequence. Of course, your email sequence should have sequence targeted at buyers, but just a simple, vague, plain email sequence is not a buyer journey. Or you sending them to just book a call strategy is not a buyer journey, if you know what I mean. A buyer journey is very different from what you think to be how you move someone from, hey, I see you, to, where they go to your landing pages and then they start seeing you, to, hey, I trust you so much. I've seen your posts everywhere. I've seen the different types of posts you do. I've seen the different types of target stuff that you do towards me because I know that I'm your right audience. You talk my language, to actually saying, I trust you enough for me to start paying you. And these days, the strategy everywhere is about threads, and YouTube is going well. By the way, if you're coming from threads, if you saw my YouTube threads, just say, hey, coming from threads, in the comments below. But this is where you take your audiences from, I see your content, I've been consuming all of your content. For instance, you came to my YouTube channel, you are binging this playlist. And if you're binging this playlist, just comment by saying binging. It'll tell me exactly where you guys are in the journey, how you guys are doing things. But I see you, I see your copy, I see your emails, I see your videos, I see your YouTube, I see your shorts, to all of this, to I trust you so much that I want to start paying you, right? So that's what is about. In between this is an exact buyer journey. That's how you take people through your decisions. So that's super blank, and then you do things which is super blank, so you don't even know if these things are translating into offers, if these things are translating into audience, are actually translating into money, to actually start seeing that money. So which means it is the sequence of decisions someone takes. For instance, like clicking on a YouTube video, clicking on a threads post, clicking on an Instagram video, clicking on a YouTube video, clicking on one of your ads, and it takes almost about 17 different clicks for somebody to go from a cold to a hot lead. So you might be watching this 15-day series, and then you decide to work with me on my clarity sprint session, which is a 60-minute session where we map things out for your business for the next 90 days. Or you decide to work with me to build your own funnels and automations, which is a done for you service. So you could do one of these, right? Similarly, you decide to binge watch my content and then you decide how to work with me. Similarly, somebody decides how to work with you by clicking on a few different links, binge watching something, and then the questions that they decide to ask at each stage. For instance, how are you doing this? I cover strategy here. So you may never have questions about how I strategize something for you when we work together. So you may have questions about my pricing, and then I tell you, oh, it's on my website. For instance, they may have questions about your offer. They may not even be sure what sort of offers you have. And that's when you go back to day one and you watch how to write. So the things that people have at each stage, and then the emotional state they are in. The different types of audience content that you write should be geared towards different types of people, and it should give them different types of emotions. It should give them different types of results. Educational content usually promotes people, tells them what exactly they should listen to, what exactly they should get, which tells people exactly, this is the state that you're in, this is the state that you're trying to move to, and so on. Then you have what's called an activating content, where you put people from a dormant position to actually getting them to like your posts, comment your posts, comment on your posts, and then go to your sales pages and so on. So your front end is going to give all of this, but your back that people are trying to make. And this is where I usually use quizzes to identify the different types of persona, because it should show them where exactly they are in the stage. Because a lot of times people are confused buyers, where they are in the journey. They don't even know what they're trying to do in the journey. They don't even know sometimes what they want. So you, if you're a high ticket coach, you become the expert and you tell type of things that you have in your business is trying to support them, right? Now, most people I see fail in a few of these things, right? A lot of people, like I mentioned, don't even know what a buyer journey is. I didn't know when I started. My client did not know when they started. But right now, the copy that my copywriter writes, the funnel design and the build and the automations that I create for every client is targeted towards these four types of buyers. And a lot of people, because they don't even know that something like this exists, do one of these common mistakes. They skip this buyer journey. They skip what their buyer wants to do, how they want to take their journey, and they just think they know everything. You might think you know everything, and then you jump straight to the tools, right? So you start now thinking, should I buy Kajabi, or should I invest in Go High Level, or should I stick with my active campaign? What is doing it? Tools does not matter. If you watched my yesterday's live session, I told you tools do not matter. Of course, you're trying to save the integrations that puts together all of that is different, but tools do not matter if you have place. And then obviously you start rebuilding your offers, thinking the sequencing isn't working well, with this tool, something is going off. Maybe my audiences need to know something else from me before they do things. And then you start copying someone else's funnel without understanding their buyers. My set of audiences are coaches, course creators, consultants, and I help them build and scale a profitable business. But your audience, as a coach or as a consultant, is completely different. And if you just come to me for inspiration and say, let me take a look at your website, let me see the inspiration that you have, and you may not even know, and then you just try to copy a funnel, you may not even know you're trying to attract the type of audience that my copy is written for, the type of audience that my automations are built for, right? That is exactly why you keep changing your systems, you keep changing your tools, you keep tweaking your copy, you keep renaming your offer. And if I called you out in any of this and you feel deeply, deeply hurt because I called you out, because you've been doing all of these things, you think you know things, and then nothing stuck with your business, this could be one of the reasons. You're not targeting persona, right? Now, like I mentioned, the way to understand your buyer journey versus buyer personas is pretty simple because they actually work together. Your buyer journey is basically, right, is the when. When will somebody take action? When will I go to this site to click? When will I decide to download a lead magnet? When will I decide to the software? When will I decide to buy your high ticket coaching program? So it's typically the when, and the persona is the how. How are they going to do this? So when the when is clear, the how as well becomes clear. Or when the how is clear, which means, is it going to be through webinars? Are they going to get your product through a series of ads? When that is clear, the when becomes clear. So now, when are you going to start promoting all of this? Are you going to have holiday sprints, or are you going to have holiday sales, or are you going to discount your prices, or are you going to open your coaching programs 2 times a week? Whatever it is, then that becomes the thing. Now, your buyer journey, like I mentioned, the when tells me where someone is. So when you talk to me, I know where someone is in their journey, where it tells me how they decide, and the systems, right, that I set up work when both of these are presented the right way, which is why we do the clarity sprint session, which is why I ask you to sit together. And when we work together, usually I put together a set of information, right? Basically, your audiences are in the same stage. If you come to me, or if I go to someone and then I say my business is trying to make $10,000 a month, right? The way you position me, I might have downloaded so many lead magnets, I might have done so many things, but I have a different mindset at this point because I don't want free resources. I'm ready to up level to a paid resource. So I'm still at the same stage in my business, but I'm now ready to up level because I have a different mindset altogether, right? This does take a bit of time to obviously master the persona versus the journey. But if you do not know where your buyer persona is, you will not be able to create their journey, right? Now, the four stages of the personas that I usually design for, I'm telling you in my perspective because I'll be able to give you a lot more information. So you will be able to replicate this for your business. All right. So the four types of buyer journey I design for every coach, every creator, every consultant. And I believe that even I have four different audience personas, right? The clients I work with still have four different personas. The first one, of course, these have different names. Feel free to find the different names if you want to. But in layman's terms, the first type is the fast decider. I recently worked with a client who was a fast decider. I got her on the call. She wanted a done for you service. She didn't think twice, especially when I told her I'll give her a payment plan. She just completed the payment right on the call and then we got to work. I onboarded her the very same day. And the next day, she completed the intake form and then my client started writing the copy for her. And we literally launched in about like, I think 14-ish days for her, which usually, takes about 3 weeks. So the fast decider. So which means they want the clarity and then they want the speed and they want somebody to do it right now. So they just don't have to worry about anything in their business, right? You might have people like this. So you just know what sort of copy or what sort of automations or what sort of funnels or what sort of content goes for such. They usually don't have a long nurture cycle. So you exactly have to know what they need. The researcher, I've been a researcher when I started my business. So the researcher is someone who wants proof and the process. And that's why if you have been working with me, if you're a previous client of mine who's still watching this live, you will know that I would have given sometimes, if you say you run ads, given you two different types of copy. The first type of copy, which is a long form, always works for a researcher because they want more proof and they want more proof and then they want more proof, right? And the process needs to be a lot more in depth because they believe that giving them more information is what actually makes sense for them in their business, right? Now, the safety seeker, somebody who always looks out for other people and they want to know how this other person is doing the things for them. So they want reassurance. They want to see in a webinar that person A and person B signed up. So it gives them a boost to actually become that person C to sign up, right? So they want reassurance. They want trust. They want trust building elements. They want to see that, your company is proven. They want to see that you are a proven coach, all of this. So it's a lot of work with them. And then the overwhelmed person or the overwhelmed creative. They want everything to be simple. They just want everything in a Google sheet. I know people who have created things in a Google sheet and they've still sold their first $2,000 programs. So they want simplicity and they want a lot more guidance. And often these people are the ones who approach low ticket products a lot more. And they are sometimes a bit of a pain to work with, if I can say that out loud, because I have done this in the early part of my career. They are the ones who consume the most time, right? The people who are ready to pay me $5,000 and $10,000 for my services have never, ever asked me even for a single sales call in my life. And I'm sure as a coach or a consultant, you would have also be like, yes to this, right? So the ones that are not ready to go beyond $2,000 are the ones who always creates the chaos, who always has too many questions, and they are the ones who are pretty much overwhelmed. They're safety seekers. They just want too much more than what they paid for. Now, so what you can focus from today's session on each persona is I want you to first identify the type of audiences you have. Go back, reference all of the questions that you have had from your audiences, or sit with your team, or if you're a solopreneur, just sit and take a piece of paper and write what type of audiences, how many people quit the previous time you launched something. If you heard crickets, but you have 200 people in your list, first understand why somebody never responded, what happened to the audience, and then I want you to take a screenshot of this or save this video, come back, and actually focus on what to do for each of these personas. And this is exactly what I do for my clients, right? For the fast deciders, they always need short emails. They need direct call to actions. They need a clean checkout page and they just want to know where everything is like an arrow mark. They want to know where things are. They just don't want to keep reading too many things. and they want the fastest path to go to the best of the offers. They want just a shorter sales page because they are already sold and things like that. So they just want everything to be quick. The safety seekers, like I mentioned, are the ones who needs more testimonials. They want to know what happens exactly. They want to know, they want to be nurtured for a longer period of time. They want low risk entry points. Sometimes they're stuck with their free products and they probably buy like a 7 or your $27 products. They usually do not spend more than that, right? So you need to be wary of those audiences. Number three is obviously the yeah. So number three obviously is the overwhelmed creative who usually has needs one call to action at a time. If you give them too many call to actions, and by the way, the goal of your funnel is to give people one call to action at a time. If you treat it like a website, right, where you give them too many call to action, people are not really going to take action. They're going to get overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do things and all of that. So give people one call to action, which is book a call, right? If it's a high ticket program, if it's if it's like a mid-ticket program, just get directly to the checkout, complete the payment here. Or, I mean, don't write complete the payment, but tell them, yes, make it more conversational. Yes, I want to see the transformation in my business or something like that, right? Then give them more visual clarity, because give them lots of white space in your design. Make things clear, right? Don't put little things like little copy and things like that, because nobody's looking for aesthetics. So make sure to be very clear about it. Give these people fewer choices. When you tell them to do this plus that plus that plus that, these people get confused. They don't know what needs to be done. They don't know how those things needs to be done, right? Then give these people your structured guidance. They need to know what to do first, where to go next, and then what to do third. Make sense? It is a lot of work on your part, but if you're trying to attract beginners for some reason, this is what happens. Okay. And this is exactly why when somebody asks me if they can use the template of what I designed, or if they say, they purchased a program and then, they have templates from there, I never agree to working with templates, or rather, I would discourage you from using templates for your funnels or for your copy, simply because it's not tailored to your audience persona. And you will know it only when you test out and when you write down your audience personas, right? That is why custom. And that's what converts. Make sense? All right. And that's where the mismatch happens, correct? So, which is you get one backend from a template, and then you have four different types of buyers. It's not adapted to your business. So, you're literally sending the same emails to everyone. So, somebody who wants more information is an analytical buyer. They think too much. They need analytics. They want to see how something converts at 6% while yours converts at 30%. Why is that? Right? You cannot send the same call to action to them. If you just say, if an analytical buyer says, I want more proof, you cannot just tell them, okay, buy this. No, that's not going to work with somebody like that. You need to tell them, okay, learn more might be something that they need, because that's what works for an analytical buyer, because they want to learn more about it. They need more proofs. And you cannot use the same tone across the board, because that's not going to work. So, and it does not sell, it creates more chaos. You start adding more offers, and your leads are burnt out just seeing the mismatched, incorrect version and information from you, right? So, we analyzed this recently for one of my client who is a manifestation coach, and he has 26 years of experience. He has traveled to 30 plus countries. He's been featured on many different journals and whatnot. And basically he gets his revenue through conducting workshops, and he also has a few paid products and a mid-ticket and a high-ticket course. So he was talking to too many people at once. He was not even sure that a buyer journey for him existed after being in business for 26 years, and which was the sad part, right? Everybody he worked with initially just told him to change the design, change the copy, change the tools, everything, and he was frustrated. And when he came to me, he was extremely frustrated. He did not trust a thing I told him. And of course, I do work with clients like that, right? When we speak strategy, that's when people understand that we are tailoring it to them. And I don't talk about use this tool, use this this copy template. No, because I know it doesn't work because I've given people results. And he had only one backend altogether. Like he had about six products from lowest to highest tier, but he had only one product all together, right? And anybody who purchased that product, everybody got the same set of emails. It was duplicated. Just the names of the courses were changed. The welcome message, everything looked the same. And he was wondering why he was not making any sales. Would you be able to making any sales? Because now that I gave you all of this information, you can type it in the chat below. And if you guessed it right, it's obviously because he had no buyer journey and he did not know his audience personas. He was not sure who he was talking to. He was not sure what he even wanted. He didn't even know that an audience journey existed, and he did not even know that he has to meet people where they are at. That was the sad part, because nobody taught him strategy, nobody told him how this works, and which is why obviously his sales tanked. Every time he launched something, he would use the exact same duplicates of those emails, and his sales tanked. So what we did when we started working together was, the first thing I did was, obviously we redesigned the offer to talk to just one or two audiences. He was talking to seven different people, and that's not going to work with any of your audiences. We segmented the URLs because it was, again, not sure. It was in a website, so it was not sure who was talking to whom, what was going on, any of those. And then the segmentation, we made the segmentation clear. We took people from a quiz and understood if they had the time and the money. If they had the money, if they could come to in person workshops, what can they do? What will bring them more revenue? And then we tagged them in the back end to show people what was going on. So the logic of him promoting his products, he was promoting his $2,500 products to people who did not have money. They were literally there to look for free resources, and he was not even sure what was going on in the back end. So we cleared up all of that mess up. I told him that there are people who, these are people you're promoting to have no money. And then we sent them a form, which is basically re engaging their audience to see where they are at in their life. He had, I think he had about 7,000 people, if I'm right, 7,500 people in the email list, and none of them have been ever re engaged, I think, for almost 2 years. So, obviously, in 2 years, a lot of things could have changed in a person's life. So, we need to show them where they are at in their journey, because a lot of them might be thinking about getting back, but they would have forgotten. We are all human, so it's okay. So we had to tell people where they are at in their journey, tell them what they're doing, where they're going, and actually help them, come back, re-engage. So we took a form, we understood where people are in their journey, and based on the responses we gave, we send them the quiz, or we auto tag them in the back end. If they're extremely busy professionals, they're not going to take the time to sit and do anything, sit and do things. So faster results. So we then set things up according to that. And what we did was, obviously took his people from the lowest tier to the highest tier as a test to begin with, to see where people are. One of the things, like I mentioned, that we did was obviously the paid trial entry. They have been having a free trial where people join for 14 days, and then they just have no idea what's going on in the back end. They were not sure who signed up, they were not sure about the retention rates, because with a membership, you need a retention rate. You need to know how many people are coming in, how many are going out, right? Why are they coming in? You need to be able to segment those audiences. You need to be able to understand what's going on, so you can tweak your strategy accordingly. So we converted that free trial, 14-day free trial, because it was too long for somebody. Somebody could just forget what's going on. We changed that into an $8 paid trial for 2 weeks. You take it or you leave it, right? It's completely up to them. And after the $8 trial, they will go into the back end, into the go high level with the tags and the segmentations, and they go into the pipeline in one of the workflows that says somebody signed up for the paid trial. And after those 15 days, what they used to do earlier was manually go ahead and cancel people's Stripe, a lot of people would get charged because they were selling an annual subscription. As you see here, they were selling an annual subscription. I think it was $369 annually. So they were charged, and then people reached out to them. It was creating a chaos. They were not even sure who was charged, who was telling them they were charged, and all of that chaos. So we created a zap to go between the Stripe, the $8 trial, see how much they have completed. And then we took them to an automatic form that they'll be sent, which they can cancel. And if the form is submitted, we know through Zapier that this annual subscription needs to be canceled and not be charged. So on the morning of the subscription, their thing would be canceled. And if they did not submit the form, and if they forgot, they did not want to do a refund, because now the process is clear. So they could at least keep up with the people who are inside, whether they do the course or they don't do, because sometimes you cannot be too nice. Refunding everybody just because somebody forgets is not your problem. And I say this take it with a pinch of salt, but that's just how it is. So people were not sure what to. People from trial entry, tagging audiences, everything happening in the back end through emails with the forms. And then if they wanted, they could stay. If not, they submitted the form, and then their annual subscription was canceled, right? So this is how we went ahead with our client's case study. So what to do today is actually go ahead and define your buyer stages, define your buyer personas. How many personas exist? Not all four needs to be in your business, but usually all these four are in some way present in most of the businesses. Match your offers, your emails, and your CTAs accordingly to each of these. Have four different call to actions, and I want you to go back and test. Remove the friction, don't add more content, strip everything down, off as much as possible. And if you want any of this done for you, obviously, if you're not ready for the hire done for your services, this is exactly what I do in the Clarity Sprint offer. Usually $297, but you can use the coupon code, that's in the description. Go ahead. This is a 60-minute one-on-one session where before the call, I get an intake form from you. I set everything up for you, and then I come out I come to the session, and then I show you exactly what's needed. You are, and you have like an entire plan mapped out for you for the next 90 days. So which means you start seeing money coming into your account. You start seeing what types of audience persona this for. And I will not ask you for the most part to create anything new or spend more money. It's basically where you get, because you're coming from this YouTube live, you obviously get about 50%, so which is about $127 right now for the session. So map out your buyer persona, map out your buyer journey, and I'll see you tomorrow where we dive deep into your backend and how things in a more streamlined way and start seeing more profits.